All right, guys, we are moving on from I Have a Dream speech. And today I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on the next thing that we're going to be doing. So, uh, it is called The Danger of a Single Story. And this is a speech by a woman who is actually primarily an author. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You will hear my cat in the background today because she is being annoying, but we'll deal with that. All right. So, if we were doing this in class, I would have you draw me a picture, but today, since I have no way to verify that you did draw a picture at all, we'll just talk about it. So, here's what I want. I want you to think about Africa. All right, think about the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase, word Africa. All right. Close your eyes, get a mind's picture, think about the landscape, think about the homes, think about the people, the animals, the day-to-day life, all right? What comes to mind when I have you think of Africa? All right, now in the past, a lot of pictures that I've had people draw, or a lot of things that might come to your mind, look like this, all right? So, have a lot of, savannah with savannah with, maybe that tree, and there's giraffes and rhinos and elephants and all these sort of African safari animals. Again, we have that sort of tree, maybe, sort of Lion King, all those animals again. And maybe if you thought of a person, you thought of like the big wrap skirts or, like the very tribal, like head coverings and stuff. And if you did think of houses that they might live in, some things that you might have thought of are like these huts, grass or mud huts. All right. But the problem with these drawings, it's not that they're totally inaccurate, because these things definitely exist in Africa, right? There definitely are elephants and giraffes and these trees, and there are tribal cultures that still live in, sort of earthy huts. However, Africa, it's one of those places that people always misname. They say, oh, the country I'd like to go to is Africa. Unfortunately, Africa is a continent with about, 52 or 53 different countries in it, spanning, vast, vast miles north and south. So, here is also what Africa looks like. All right, this is also Africa. Here at the top, we have Johannesburg, and this is in South Africa. Over here, we have Nairobi, which is in Kenya, and that's sort of on the eastern side of Africa. And then down here, we have Cairo, which is Egypt. All right. So you could have drawn me a picture of the Great Pyramids of Giza, and you still would have been right, because Egypt is a part of Africa. So, speaking of Cairo, right, speaking of all of these sort of misrepresentations that people have in their mind, there are a lot of places and things around this world that people have an image of, or that they have a belief about in their mind, but it might not be totally accurate, or it might be completely inaccurate. So, one of them, and this was always true for me for years and years and years, is the Great Pyramids of Giza. Right? So there's dudes out here on camels, way out in the desert. It's in the middle of nowhere. Right? You have to travel for a while to get to them. Right? But that is a misrepresentation, because this is a picture taken of one side of the Great Pyramids of Giza. In actuality, the city of Cairo is basically right up against the pyramids, and that makes sense. I mean, because way back in ancient Egypt, you were going to want to have your people live close to the work site that you were going to have them build pyramids on. All right. And I mean, you don't have to travel very far. Actually, I think like right around here or right around here, there is a Pizza Hut that you can sit in and eat pizza and look at the Great Pyramids of Giza. All right. The other thing that people tend to get wrong is when they think of African Americans. All right. That's become the politically correct term for uh, Black people in our country. However, um, when you are actually talking about nationality, that term can be a misnomer because this is Charlize Theron, this is Dave Matthews, and they are both born and raised in South Africa, right? So these two people are actually African Americans. They were African born and now they are citizens of America. Um, so I guess sort of in this quest to, I am not saying that it's wrong, but in this quest to be uh sort of correct about everything, people will go to England and they'll say, "Oh, African American," even though it would, if you were trying to be correct, it would be African British. Uh, but you know, if you're talking about race, black is an acceptable race descriptor, right? The other stereotype that people tend to get of Africa, and it shows up a lot in like uh, movie trailers or movie posters, and especially in book covers. Somebody actually went and compiled a collection of these covers where they said if a book is set in Africa, doesn't even matter where, or anywhere in Africa, the predominant color scheme or image that they're going to use is the giant rising yellow sun with that, kind of stringy tree, which is called the acacia tree. Yellow sun with an acacia tree. It's a thing. Anything set in Africa. Yellow sun, acacia tree. Yellow sun, acacia tree. Or having these very orangey um, color schemes to indicate this is Africa. All right. And even if the covers of the book don't actually say a novel of Africa or I dreamed of Africa, it is one way to, I guess, try to signal to readers, hey, like this one's called Rainbow's End. And this sort of orange yellow sun with an acacia tree, it signals to readers, guess what? This is set in Africa. And that tends to lend to the stereotype of why people tend to think of these images as African. So now we're going to think critically. All right. Our speech this time around is called The Danger of a Single Story. All right. So, given the, drawing that I would have had you do and given the stuff I just talked about, what do you think a single story is and why might it be dangerous or harmful? All right. So think about that for a minute. What do you think in your mind a single story is? All right. Um, in this case, the danger of a single story is that it's very much like a stereotype where you learn one thing about a person, right? Or you learn one thing about a place or an idea, and that becomes the predominant way you think about it, right? So, going back to the beginning, this has become the single story of Africa, right? If you tell the majority of people, like, picture Africa, this has become sort of the predominant stereotype or image that comes to mind. However, by buying into this image and only this image, you're sort of eliminating these stories of these people with this very rich metropolitan life. All right, very sophisticated, highly, educated and worldly people. All right. So if you met someone like our speaker who's going to be doing the speech, Chimamanda Adichie, She is from Lagos, Nigeria. Um, and if you said, oh, Chimamanda Adichie, she's African, this is her experience, this is her story, you'd be missing out on the fact that actually and she'll talk about this, but her life was very privileged, and her father, I think, was like a professor, and she has to try to combat all of these single stories that people tend to give her about her life. All right, and the reason why that's dangerous again is because it tends to dismiss or kind of wipe out elements of a person's identity or life or culture, whatever it may be. It tends to kind of put those to the side in favor of that stereotype. All right, so all you need to do for today is comment for attendance, and then tomorrow we will be watching The Danger of a Single Story. Thanks much.